Before we dive in today, I want to share some really exciting news with you all. My new preschool sleep program is open for enrollment. In Your Preschool Sleep Champion, I will teach you 4 different sleep intervention approaches that will end bedtime battles, middle of the night wakings, and those pesky too early wakings in the morning. Plus, I'll give you clear and specific language and scripts to use to explain the new plan to your child and to keep things on track throughout the implementation process. This program is ideal if you have a child who's between 2.5 and 6 years old. Click on the link in the show notes or below this video to learn more. Today, I'm going to share my thoughts about a very popular sleep intervention approach for preschoolers and early elementary age children. The bedtime or nighttime pass. I am not a huge fan of this method, and I want to help you understand why, because it may help you as you evaluate what method would be best for your child. Hi, I'm Allison Edgety, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of 2. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. When I first became a sleep coach, one of the methods I would sometimes use with families was offering a bedtime or nighttime pass. If you're not familiar with this method, I'll start by just sharing the basics of how it works. You create a bedtime or nighttime pass on, a note card or a piece of cardboard, and each card gives your child a free pass to leave their room to find you or to call for you to come back to give them another kiss, more water, more cuddles, all the things that our kids request. Each night at the end of the bedtime routine, you give your child 1 to 3 bedtime or nighttime passes, and you remind them that if they call out or they get out of the bed, that they will have to use one of these passes or give you one of these passes. And then once they have used all their passes, they aren't supposed to call for you or leave their room for the rest of the night. If they choose not to use the pass or passes at bedtime or during the night, it can then be exchanged in the next morning or after they've accumulated a few saved passes to get a small prize. For example, a sticker, a small toy, 15 extra minutes of screen time, etc. The idea behind this method is that the passes give your child comfort because they know they have the option to call for you or to come find you and that you will show up. But the incentive of getting the prize or not wanting to lose the option will motivate your child to just stay in the bed and fall asleep or back to sleep without actually using the passes. That's kind of the goal. This method, like almost all of the methods you'll read about out there, can work for some kids. It does work for some kids. But about 4 years ago, I really stopped talking about it as an approach, and I would actually actively encourage parents who are using it to shift away from it. There are 3 main reasons I no longer recommend this approach for the spirited children that I typically end up working with. First of all, I am just not a big fan of reward systems as it relates to sleep. I actually don't think that they're that motivating for most kids, and I find that many preschool-age children actually love the idea of the nighttime pass and the idea of getting a reward if they don't use it. But when push comes to shove, that potential reward is just not enough to override that urge to call for a parent or to leave the room when that child is tired or anxious. And then many parents end up with a child who used their passes up and then they are still calling for them or leaving the room. That means that they now need a backup plan or strategy for what to do if their child just blows through the passes and still isn't staying in their room. Don't get me wrong. I love a good backup sleep intervention plan because there's always the potential that the first strategy you try with your child won't work out the way you planned. But I found that the pass just not being that effective for most of the spirited children I work with meant that we were always using the backup plan. And then that meant we were kind of wasting time and we were ultimately slowing the process down because, of course, it's always ideal if we can just keep smoothly moving through the plan that we started with, and then we don't have to change course. The second reason I'm not a huge fan of this method is because if the passes do technically work, parents may end up with a child who uses their pass or passes most, if not all nights. So we don't actually veer away completely from the calling the parent back or leaving the room. That means that they're still not falling asleep or back to sleep without needing additional support. This means that bedtime is often still frustrating for parents, or you have a child who's still waking you up at least once or twice a night because they're technically living within the rules or within the expectations that you set. The recommendation is typically that you would then gradually reduce the number of passes and then stop using them altogether. But what child is going to like that idea? So to me, that seems like your child is following the plan or the expectations that you set by using the passes that you told them they could use, but then you're changing the rules. So they did what you wanted, and now you're taking that away. The chance of a sleep regression for the kids that fall into this group and then you have to actively remove those passes is going to be really high. And the third reason is that there's another less than stellar outcome of the process working, and that is that your child saves those passes and they resist that urge to call for you or leave the room, but then they need all these ongoing rewards. Reward systems are debatable to begin with when it comes to raising our kids, but as it relates to sleep specifically, I am really, really not a fan of reward systems. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. We need our children to sleep every single night for the rest of their childhood, actually for the rest of their lives, but definitely for the rest of the time in our homes, literally every single night. So you're either going to be buying a lot of rewards for your child, or your child's just going to lose interest in this game and they're not going to care about the process anymore because they were only following along because they were getting a reward. I truly, truly believe it's in our children's best interest that we help them understand that sleep is important for their health and that it's not something that they need to dread or worry about. I realize that is easier said than done. That's the reason I have a job. But it's a process that can take time, but has a huge long-term benefit. And it's going to outlast any stickers or prizes that you could offer. Plus, I don't know any parents that want to keep finding these silly prizes or having all this extra little trinkets in your house. And similar to removing the passes, if your child's following this plan and earning these prizes, and then suddenly you stop giving them, that seems like a negative for your child. So they did what you asked, and now you're going to remove the process, and they're not going to get the prizes because they actually did what you wanted. So I just don't really like this method because while it certainly can work for some kids, there's a lot of room for it to go sideways. So those are the three main reasons that I no longer recommend bedtime or nighttime passes to help with preschool or early elementary sleep. And I really continue to encourage parents to shift away from this method if they've been using it and it hasn't been effective. Of course, if you have used it and it worked, more power to you. I'm thrilled. But if it's not working, I would consider shifting away to a different approach. As always, thank you for joining me. I hope you'll come back next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.